some friendships survive mostly because nobody says the truth, right? And I don't think this is because people don't care. I think it's because nobody wants to say what's actually changed. And I feel like I've noticed this a lot in adult friendships. That they don't necessarily end, they just become maintenance, right? You still talk sometimes, you still maybe hang out occasionally, you still maybe even call each other close friends, but something feels different, right? The conversation gets lighter, the connection feels less present, it feels more like nostalgia than like what's currently going on. And usually both people can feel it, but I feel like nobody wants to be the one to say, hey, I don't think we're as close as we used to be. And I think it's because maybe for some people it feels cruel or maybe unnecessary, or maybe like saying something would ruin everything. But so instead, people protect their history of the friendship rather than being honest about what it's become. And I don't necessarily think that that makes people fake. I just think if people are being honest, a lot of people are afraid of confrontation, or they're afraid of loss. They're afraid of admitting that someone who once knew them deeply doesn't really know them the same anymore. And I don't know, maybe that's part of growing up, is realizing that some friendships don't disappear or end, they just change shape. But I think what makes this even stranger is how differently people treat friendships compared to romantic relationships, right? Because when it comes to romantic relationships, when it struggles, people usually try to understand what's happened. They communicate, they fight for it, they have difficult conversations, they might even look for closure. But friendships, a lot of them suddenly fail or fade the second things become complicated. There's no conversations, there's no clarity, no acknowledgement, just silence, just distance. And it's interesting because some friendships hold just as much emotional history as romantic relationships do, sometimes even more so. At least I know that's what it's like for me in my friendships. But I feel like culturally, we don't really treat them the same. We don't really treat friendship breakup like real loss. We act like they're supposed to disappear quietly. Like if a friendship changes, the mature thing is to never talk about it directly. And I don't think that's always healthy, right? Because if someone mattered enough to become part of your life for years, why is honesty suddenly too much? Why do we believe difficult conversations are a sign that romantic relationship is worth saving, but a sign that a sign that a friendship is already over? And the thing is, avoiding these conversations doesn't actually protect the friendship, right? It actually does the opposite. Because the longer people avoid saying what's real and what's true to them, is the more distance built underneath the surface, right? You're not really connecting anymore, you're maintaining. And I think part of the problem is that people treat honesty like it automatically destroys relationships, when really, honesty is supposed to do one of the two things, right? Either strengthen the connection, or clarify what's no longer there. And honesty, maybe some friendships are meant to become lighter, right? Maybe some people are okay with the casual check-ins and the shared history. That's not inherently bad, but why not just say that, right? Why not just say that? People act like clarity is more dangerous than confusion, because this idea that nobody owes anyone anything, even though it can sound freeing, it actually just becomes an excuse for people to never be clear about where they are to each other, right? And I don't know, I just feel like, be honest, right? The most respectful thing, I don't think, is to pretend that the closeness is still the same. I think the most respectful thing is to just be honest about what's changed and just have the conversation. But that's just my 2 cents.